Thank you so much for staying tuned into this program, a special edition, and we're focusing on the relationship between opposition parties and the media. I often find this commercialization argument, I just want to pick up on it, overstated. And I can tell you for free on the basis of my own experience in newsrooms across the commercial media, I don't even know who owns half the places that I've written for, done television work for, do radio for. I don't know who my bosses are, because quite frankly, I don't care. So I'm not saying that there isn't problems with the quality of journalism, Refiloe, but I can tell you now that this idea that just because there's a commercial interest, it means that you are incapable of better quality journalism. It's the right identification of the problem, but the wrong diagnosis of where the problem lies. Surely.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with you, but overall, I would still say South Africa is far better than what other African countries are. If you look at the censorship of what goes into the media, Zimbabwe being a typical case in point. I mean, if you had to even compare our media coverage versus what you'd have in Zim, you would be locked up for even having a program of this nature to an extent. Even
That's
talking
true.
about
Although,
SABC.
I'd love to take that lovely, juicy, meaty bone you're throwing at me. But of course, we don't necessarily want a baseline that is that poor, right? We still want a media that can do as well as possible.
But you wanted to do it fairly
Sure.
across the streams
Yeah.
with all the political parties.
I want to move, just because we've got very little time left in the last couple of minutes, and ask a question around, given how many of these weaknesses are structural weaknesses that will continue in terms of the juniorization, commercial interests, less money to recruit new talent in Mbuyiseni. What is the implication of that for you from a political comms point of view? So when you sit down and you strategize and say, okay, reality is what it is, how do you go about thinking, this is what I got to do? If, for example, it's an election season, this is going to be how I strategize around these weaknesses.
When I mean, in the election season, it's about speaking directly to our people. And that is the way to contest your weaknesses, which around elections, they actually get exacerbated. Because you're not in the rural areas, you are absent, particularly the ENCA. And they tell me that it's a question of money. I think it's a question of commitment. I don't think it's a question of money. I was saying earlier on that, you know, the idea, for an example, that something like a game changer is the Nene Gate. It's so poor. It just tells you that you actually don't get politics. Understand? It doesn't matter who Zuma fires, who Zuma puts in. The game changer is the ballot. It's the actual ballot. So the greatest, most important, significant thing that has happened in politics this year is the outcome of the local government elections. And there's only one game player there, the Economic Freedom Fighters.
Refiloe, let me ask you the same question. When you sit down as a comms team in the DA, irritated as you might be by what you regard as these structural weaknesses in the media, right? And you're a little bit less scathing than Mbuyiseni was about our environment. How does one begin to think about political strategy as a communications expert, given all of these things that you have to negotiate about us? Historicism, we have a urban bias, all of the other things that we've mentioned in the program so far.
Look, our election starts the day after an election, so we're not really going to say media is everything to us. It merely augments something that we're reading on the ground. If you've heard anything of our communications, we believe face-to-face conversations with voters. That's why we believe people must go out, people must hit the ground, do door-to-door, talk to people. That's how you sell your message. That's how you get people to understand who you are and what you're selling to them. Mbuyiseni thinks they're the only party in the game. 2019 is very clear. We know very clearly that the DA is going to be in that role. It might be a coalition part, but the majority party in that coalition, the majority party in that coalition will still be the DA as it is in 2016.
We're not flagging who's got the better prospects.
Increasingly,
but the reality is
DA
the people who hit the ground harder in terms of communicating with South Africans. I mean, throughout this election, I did the rural provinces. I was not even in the media space a lot. If you see even who was following me around, it was the community radio stations, a little bit of SABC here and there. But my framework was have public meetings, go door to door, talk to people directly. If the media comes, it's a bonus. Then they augment the message, but I've already done my own groundwork.
Do you share that strategic posture from a communications point of view?
No, of course. I mean, you've got to speak not only to your constituencies, but also do a deep ideological work in relation to your activists. I do want to put it on the record, though, that I'm not saying we are the only people in the game. I'm saying we are the most important people in this game of this year. Without the EFF, it's impossible to have gotten the type of an election outcome that you got in 2016. And it is only on the basis of that outcome that you can begin to concretely say that there is a demise of the ANC. Nothing else, not save the soul, save the body, not even the renegade. Only the outcome at the forefront, at the core of that election outcome is the economic freedom fighters undoing the dominance of what has become a corrupt beyond salvation.
Okay, we've got to wait a second. I'll give you 10 seconds each and see how honest you can be as communicators. What in turn, we've obviously had a lovely discussion about weaknesses in the media. What in turn should you do better in order to land more effectively in the mainstream media next year?
I think it's difficult to say. We will still sell our message. We're not going to stray away from being proud of who we are as liberals and say liberalism is the way to go. The DA is the party that can transform South Africa. You know our record in terms of delivery.
You're perfect.
But we want the media to actually understand that biasness must stop. You must start selling for all parties, you must start selling the messages of all the political parties and let South Africans
chance of a greater level of self-reflexiveness from you than Refiloe?
Look, I think that all of us, it would be important to take the question of data must fall seriously, so that if data can be cheaper, I think we'll be able to get more rural voices and more poor voices. And by urban, I also mean like the poor in the urban don't have a voice. And social media presents the necessary alternative spaces that are outside traditional but also dominant media.
But there's nothing, it's business as usual in terms of the way in which you communicate.
No, we're going to stick to the basics. The basics are always the best, is to make sure that we speak to everybody, both the media, continue to have these kinds of critical conversations, but also speak directly to our people.
Okay, we're going to leave it there.
Thank
you so much to both of you for coming in, and all the best with this tense but healthy relationship, I think, between you guys and us in the media. It's really been a pleasure having you on this special broadcast.
Thank you, Sylvia.
I'm afraid that is all we have time for today on this show. And of course, you can decide for yourself what you make of this relationship and the quality of the journalism that you provided. Of course, on this particular show, we do value your feedback. And remember to always engage us on digital platforms by using the hashtag #MeetTheMedia. Have yourselves a wonderful week ahead.